Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video.
Moving on from a betrayal most foul, long but worthwhile read, I've been told. I've been separated from my ex-fiancée for 4 years now. I was young, foolish, and desperately in love. She meant everything to me, and our kid meant even more. You're probably thinking about 4 years. That's enough time to move on. I'm basically over it, but I sometimes feel melancholy around key anniversaries from that relationship, such as yesterday, when we moved in together. I apologize in advance for what is going to be a lengthy article. I will try to make it short. I was in school when we met, on my way to obtaining a PhD, when we found out she was pregnant. Being the great young man that I was, I told her that I supported whatever decision she made. This was a lie, but I definitely thought termination would be best for us because she hadn't started her nursing program yet, and with us both being in demanding schools, we wouldn't be able to finish school. I tried everything, logic, empathy, and even having my older sister try to persuade her out of the pregnancy. Hindsight, this was all not the best way to go about it. Originally, I chose to break up with her as a scare tactic in a protracted period of weakness. All of this happened because my parents had no idea I was dating, and as a young guy who dreaded his mother's anguish and anger, I was losing my mind. After 7 months, my parents are told of the news, and after another 3 months, I move out of my parents' home and begin living with my girlfriend. Our daughter is born 2 months later. As I previously said, living this lifestyle of dad, boyfriend, and student was destined for our failure. 2 years into this lifestyle, I flunk out of my degree. I persuade her that in order for our educational success, she should return home and get more help from her mother, who lives 2 hours away. This is where I acquire a job to help them financially while I complete my education. While they were down there, I vowed to visit them at least once a month and on every holiday. Things started to become strange while I was doing the LDR. Stories began to go among my friends and family that she was having guys in and out of the home. When I confronted her, she rejected all claims. I proceeded. I caught her lying one day when she stated she was at her closest friend's home, but her brother informed me she was going to a party with a male classmate. So, because I had the day off, I traveled down there and attempted to wait for her at home. She heard I was coming down and hurried home to wash before seeing me in. Following a couple more events similar to this one, the straw that broke the camel's back was as follows: it's Christmas, and our daughter is now 3 years old. I proposed to her in February, and we're set to marry in 3 months. I see she's been chuckling noisily at messages she's received on her phone. My suspicion is moderate, but I'm going to try to get through the holiday and deal with it afterwards. During our Christmas party, she becomes blackout drunk and accuses me of not trusting her, which comes as a surprise since I hadn't mentioned anything to her in over 4 months. She blacks out immediately after. I bring her to bed and realize her phone is still blowing up. Given that she had her iPhone configured to show messages even when it was locked, I couldn't help but notice that this message was from a male buddy she often mentioned. "Baby, I miss you so terribly," he says. I'm furious at this point, so I try to emulate her and see what I can get out of him. Me, as her, I miss you as well. Him, is your boyfriend still sleeping? I'd want to come through. Me, he's going to go to bed, you have around 40 minutes. To cut a long tale short, he never arrived, and after a furious argument with her brother that same night, I discovered she was, at least, a local police officer who mistook me for her deceased son. My name is tattooed on her, and that's the narrative she would tell. I don't sleep that night, and when she comes in, I quiz her about the previous night's events. She becomes defensive when I look through her phone, but she responds, "It was all a trap to see if you would go through my phone." I didn't accept it as an answer at first, but in a foolish effort to believe everything, I finally did. Fast forward a year, and we're not married due of a last-minute gut feeling. Another horrible sensation comes over me one day as I reflect on the past, and the feeling tells me that I should find out whether my kid is biologically mine. After coercing the girlfriend into agreeing to a test, she admits that there's a possibility I'm not the father. After 3 difficult weeks, it is revealed that the kid is not mine. After much deliberation, I realize I can't take it any longer and inform her that I'll begin the process of removing myself from their life altogether. After our breakup, she asked that I not see anybody for a time. Which I told her she had no right to do, but that was my plan anyway. She admits that she intends to do the same. I learn through her relatives that she is pregnant with her second kid 4 months later and marries the father of that child 3 months later. This makes me quite happy, particularly because I discovered that the person and I had a striking likeness. I'm now in a nice relationship and have another degree, but I still find myself allowing the above tale knock me down on a regular basis, almost as if it governs my life at times. I have trust difficulties that I'm working to overcome since my current girlfriend is not like my previous fiancé. I'm praying that one day this will all be a memory. Final words, I have a minor concern that my ex-not daughter would seek me out one day since she is still being taught that I am her father and that I abandoned her. Words from her aunt, whom I am close. Story 2. Wife cheated, I am so angry I am scared of myself. So I'm a little perplexed. It's been approximately 2 weeks since I found out, and I've been skeptical for a long, with several red flags but nothing conclusive. I decided to address her, and her response, uncontrolled rage, prompted me to do so. How can I accuse her of such a thing? She would never, ever cheat. It made me certain. I snooped on her phone and computer but found nothing, so I purchased several little cameras and placed them about the home. Then, during the weekend, I went to see some pals. I grew up in Norway on the Swedish border, and I met my wife in Sweden when I was 20 years old. She was 21 years old, and she had a 3-year-old child at the time. We clicked, and I've become that kid's father for the last 11 years. I adore him and consider him to be my son. It doesn't matter that we've been married for 6 years. To cut a long tale short, I went home early knowing she wouldn't be there and watched the film. Sure enough, she was having an adult conversation with another male. I knew him as a coworker named Theodore, and we got along well with him and his wife. I used to think seeing red was just a metaphor, but I was seeing red. I've never been so upset in my life. I'm really a fairly quiet man who seldom gets angry, but I just lost it. I slammed at the walls and slammed the bedroom door so hard. It flew off its hinges and broke a glass table in our living room. I didn't even realize I was biting the inside of my cheek. But as I shouted, I splattered blood on the wall and the floor. I managed to hit my head really hard at one point, which jolted me out of it. When I saw the carnage, I realized I had to get out of there. If my wife had come in at that time, I'm quite sure I'd be in prison. In the best case scenario, there is domestic violence. In the worst case scenario, there is murder. I immediately packed a bag with necessities and my laptop. I deal with simulation and modeling, and my computer is custom, which I need to complete my job. I emailed a copy of the tape to Theodore's wife, but I didn't include anything else in the message other than your husband is cheating on my wife. I ran into my kid right outside our apartment complex, hugged him, and told him I would always love him, but his mother was cheating on me, so I had to go. I genuinely hate telling him, he shouldn't have to bear that load, but I wasn't feeling myself at the moment, and it just spilled out of me. I went to the border because I wanted to meet my relatives in Norway, but they wouldn't allow me through due to COVID. I've been staying at a cheap Airbnb, working but feeling like a zombie, and haven't spoken to my wife. My son is the only one to whom I have reacted. He's been asking me questions, and I've been as honest as possible with him about the fact that I don't know what's going to happen next, other than divorce. I've been looking for a reputable lawyer, and I've gotten hundreds of mails from my wife and her relatives. I haven't replied to any of them. As far as I am aware, my parents are the only people who are aware of what is going on in my life. I don't want to speak to my friends since they are also friends with my wife, so I don't have much support right now. I'm terrified that if I speak to her or see her again, I'll lose it and say or do something I'll regret. I also don't want to lose touch with my kid, but I'm not sure where to begin. I'm still enraged and don't know how to move over it. I need to reply to my wife at some point, but I'm so enraged that I don't believe I'm sensible. I simply wanted to try writing it down and see if it helped. Thus far, it hasn't made any difference.